Hey Retellings lovers, welcome to video 3 of our Q&A video series on how to create an effective fairy tale retelling. I'm answering your most burning questions all about how to create those retellings in a really engaging way, and I put a call out on my social media to get those questions answered. And in the last video we talked all about how it's not enough to just pick one plot point and then call your story a retelling. That's not going to work because that's just kind of an extra story that has a similarity to a fairy tale but is not actually necessarily a retelling. So how many plot points should we be using? Should we be hitting everything, or is 2 enough? Well, here's the deal. With a retelling, you have to remember that fans know this original story. If they have picked up your book because they want a twist on whatever it happens to be, they want to really easily recognize the particular story that you are rewriting. They know this story, they love this story, they grew up with this story, and so they're going to be actively looking for those plot points to identify them. When Cinderella loses her shoe, when she runs away from the ball, when the prince comes to find her, all of these things that happen to Cinderella, people are looking for those. And when people are looking at a Sleeping Beauty retelling, they're looking for her falling asleep, for the prince coming to find her, for the dragons, and for all of these different things that are going on from the original stories and the versions that we've come to know and love. So how many plot points do you need? I'm going to go as far as to say the majority of them, and the really good retellings authors can work in every single plot point with a totally unique spin and twist to it. So here's the deal. As you are working in those plot points, remember, you don't have to do them in order, and you don't have to do them all in the course of one book. In fact, in my Goldilocks retelling series, Golden, I actually have all of the major plot points: how she stumbles into their house, how she eats their food, how she sleeps in their bed, how she wakes up to them, how she runs away. I've got them all in there, but I have worked them in over the course of the series. So I put all of the major, like the big ones inside of the first story, but then I took some of the smaller ones and I worked them into the sequel and to the final book in the series, and I might have even worked a little bit into some of those prequel novellas that I wrote as well, just to make sure that every book in the series touched on part of the story. So if you are creating a singular retelling, just a standalone novel, get them all in the one book. But if you happen to be working on a series, hit at least 3 or 4 of the major points within the first book so people can really feel like this is definitely a retelling, this is definitely Goldilocks' story, it's Ariel's story, or the Little Mermaid story, because Ariel is specific to Disney. Make sure we're not copyright infringing. But this is definitely Sleeping Beauty, this is definitely Cinderella, this is definitely Little Bo Peep or Little Miss Muffet. This is definitely the story that I know and love. And then over the course of the series, work in other things as well. So I definitely hid some fun things in the follow-up books to my Golden Trilogy as well. So you do need to make sure you're hitting the majority of the plot points within the story that you are retelling so that people can easily recognize it and say, yes, this is a story that I knew from when I was a child. This is what I knew, this is what I grew up with, this is what I know. I am aware of what this story is, this makes logical sense, and I didn't realize this was the actual story, this was the actual twist to it, and that history maybe got it a little bit on the wrong side. So hit as many as possible. The really good ones will hit all of the points. But if you can't, make sure you're at least hitting 4, 5, 6 of those major points so that people can easily recognize it in your story. And if it's a standalone, make sure you get them all in that story. If it's a series, you can space them out a little bit, but get the really important ones inside of the first story, or allude to them showing up in this follow-up stories as well as you are writing if you absolutely can't work it into the first one. Now if you have more questions on fairy tale retellings, drop them down below. I will happily get them answered in this video Q&A session all about creating effective retellings. And make sure you stay tuned, because the next video we are talking all about what happens when you have 2 fairy tales clashing in one story. So what happens when Cinderella meets Sleeping Beauty, and what happens when you cross one with the other? How many plot points from each of those stories do you need in your crossover? Come join me, it's going to be a lot of fun, and drop your questions down below if you have others. I'm K.m. Robinson. You can come hang out with me at k.m.robinsonbooks.com and at k.m.robinsonbooks on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, IGTV, and YouTube. And I cannot wait to jump into video 4 of our Q&A on fairy tale retellings and how to create them effectively. Thanks so much for joining me. Until the next video, stay inspired.